Hey, what is up guys? The name is Bond, Oleg and Bond. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm gonna review one of my favorite watches in the collection, one of my favorite watches ever, the Omega Seamaster Bond Goldeneye Quartz. I love this watch so much and I actually owned it for over 2 years now. I just never did a review until now. So let's get started. First, a little background on how I came about buying this watch. So I've been looking for one for a while before I purchased it. I'd say maybe half a year, maybe 8 months or so. I kept on checking eBay, kept on checking local classifieds, talking to different watchmakers in the city, seeing if anybody was selling an Omega Seamaster. And I actually bid on a few on eBay. I lost out all of those auctions. You know, it happens. If you're on the search for a watch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then my girlfriend and I went on vacation to Banff in Alberta. It's a province in Canada here. And I was still checking on my MacBook every day for these Seamasters. And one came up for sale from United States. The seller had good ratings. And I actually made a video about how to buy a watch on eBay. 7 tips and tricks, something like that. So I'll link that in the description below. But anyways, I followed my own tips and tricks about purchasing this watch. The watch came with papers, no box. And I decided, hey, why not pull a trigger on this one? And while I was on vacation, I actually bought one of my dream watches. Needless to say, the rest of the vacation was also very special. So it's just been a great time. And right from the beginning, I have very positive experiences, very positive memories associated with this watch. Since that time, of course, I shared so many more great experiences with this watch. I brought it with me on many vacations, including about a year and a half ago when I went to New York. This was the only watch that I brought with me for the whole trip. It was a week-long trip, which is very unusual for me. I usually would bring maybe 3-4 watches for a trip like that, but I decided to only bring one and I didn't regret it. It went with every outfit. It fit into all the different situations that I was in. It was just a perfect watch to bring with me on that trip, and I brought it on so many other trips. I wear it for a lot of special occasions. This watch finds its place on my wrist at least once every week or once every 2 weeks for sure. So why this watch? Why did I choose this quartz version? Why the reference 2541.80.00? Well, all thanks to a man named James Bond and a movie called Goldeneye. So Goldeneye came out in 1995. At that time, I was still a child and I was back in Ukraine. I didn't watch the movie in 1995, don't get me wrong. I watched that movie probably 98, 99, 2000, something like that. I had a VHS copy, horribly dubbed in Ukrainian, and I watched that movie and Big Trouble in Little China pretty much every day. And in that movie, James Bond is wearing this watch. I believe that's actually the first partnership between Omega and James Bond franchise. So anyways, coming back to little impressionable Oleg. Since I saw this watch, it stuck in my mind and I always wanted one. Back in Ukraine, there were no opportunities to get one. Actually, it took me a long time to get one. And it's not like I was always thinking about this watch, but it was just one of those things that you have kind of at the back of your mind. One of those things, one of those goals that you want to achieve at some point. And finally, when I bought this watch, when I got it in mail, it was a very special day, and I still have almost a honeymoon period with this watch. As I said, I constantly wear it, and I think it looks great. It's probably one of my favorite designs on diver watches ever. So the size of the watch fits my wrist really well. It has a 41mm diameter. It's 47mm from one lug to another. It has a 20mm lug width and a thickness of 11.5mm, including the domed sapphire crystal. So the watch fits on the wrist really well, and a lot of that thanks to the 41mm diameter, and another part of that thanks to the thickness of the watch. The watch is fairly thin, especially for a diver watch, so I really like how this watch looks on the wrist. It still has that heft, it still has that presence, even though it is a quartz movement. It's not a light watch by any means, so you feel it on your wrist, but it is very slender in profile, so it slips under a cuff of your shirt really nicely. I don't really wear it as a dress watch. I mean, I'm no James Bond, but if you wear it with like a casual shirt or with a sweater or with a jacket, it slips under the sleeve really nicely, and it's just a comfortable watch to wear. Originally, the watch came with an all brushed case and a brushed bracelet. However, over the years, I guess this watch has been polished and over polished, in my opinion, in some extent. So now the watch appears to be pretty much all polished finish, which I don't really mind, to be honest with you, but I do wish I had it in the most original condition. Of course, that would be a lot more expensive. So now I actually should talk about the price. So about two and a half years ago, I paid $960 US for this watch. I think that's a pretty good price, especially for an Omega, especially for an iconic watch like this. Now, a lot of you will argue that paying almost $1,000 for a quartz watch is a mistake, and I'm not here to convince you otherwise. Please spend your money as you wish. But for me, it just felt right. And of course, this is not just any quartz movement. It's not one of those Chinese cheap quartz movements. This one rocks an Omega 1538 quartz precision movement, which is basically based on ETA with some Omega charm added on top. There are so many different forum posts about this movement of people testing these movements to the limit. They're freezing them. They're putting them through all kinds of different life situations, a lot of shock, a lot of vibrations, and the movements keep on ticking. So it is a very tough and robust movement. Yes, it is quartz, but it still is a good movement. There is a difference between a cheap quartz movement and a more high-end quartz movement. The watch has two crowns, one by the 3 o'clock position with these iconic crown guards, and one by the 10 o'clock position. So the one at the 3 o'clock position is the crown that powers the movement, and the one by the 10 o'clock position is the helium escape valve. Between you and I never used that crown. I never unscrewed it once in the past 2.5 years of owning this watch. One of the reasons why I like traveling with this watch so much is because the movement is very easy to change into different time zones. Let me show you what I mean. So when you pull out the crown into the first position, basically you just change the hour hand. So you can go 1 hour forward or 1 hour back, which again is very convenient for traveling. The second position, of course, you change the time and the minute hand. So I really like that function. The downside of this is, of course, that there is no quick set for the date. Omega Seamaster 300, surprise, surprise, has 300 meters of water resistance. Some of that thanks to the screw down crown, and some of that is thanks to this screw down case back. The case back engraving is really nice. It says Seamaster at the back, and it has kind of engraving of a seahorse and Omega logo, of course. Now there's also this wavy pattern at the back to match, of course, the wave pattern on the dial. And oh man, what a beautiful dial it is. It's so beautiful to look at. It reflects light differently every time I look at it. It's almost like looking at a new dial each time I glance at this watch. In low lights, the dial appears to be completely flat. As soon as a little bit of light hits it, you can see the wave pattern kind of light up. And if you look at it at certain angles, you can really see each one of the waves going through the dial. It's really beautiful, and the combination of this dark blue dial and a lighter shade blue bezel is just gorgeous. I also like that the indices for hour markings have already developed a little bit of patina. I mean, the watch is about 24 years of age, so over time the lume has yellowed a little bit. The lume is still very strong. Let me pop a lume shot on the screen right now. It's one of the strongest looms out of all diver watches that I currently have in my collection. So still after 24 years, the lume is very strong. All painted on and printed dial, so nothing is really applied. I really do like that white border around the date window. I also really like the printing where it says the Seamaster Professional 300 meters, 1000 feet, and also the Omega logo. It's really tough, I guess, to achieve that flat print on a wavy dial, but here it looks fantastic. The bezel is 120 click unidirectional bezel. The bezel action is excellent. There's no backplay. It's very satisfying to turn. However, here's my first negative with the watch, and it's the fact that the bezel is not the easiest to grip. It looks very beautiful. This design looks amazing, but Gripping that bezel is not the easiest, especially in water. I've tried turning it in water. Of course, I swam with this watch many times, and turning it in water is not that fantastic or that satisfying. The watch, of course, comes on this iconic stainless steel bracelet. I really like this bracelet. It's one of my favorite bracelets of any watch that I have ever experienced. It's very comfortable. It has good heft to it. It just feels like a quality bracelet. It has, of course, this 2-push release buckle, Omega Seamaster Professional written on it. All solid links, solid end links. Push style pins, surprisingly, so no screw down pins in this watch. However, it has been made in 1995, so screw in pins weren't as popular back then. This clasp also has a hidden diver's extension, so you unhook it as such, and now you have extra 2 centimeters, maybe 3 centimeters to put this watch over a wetsuit, as it is a professional diver watch. However, as great as this bracelet is, it has one very big negative in my book, and that's the lack of micro adjustments. I wish there was at least 1 or 2 micro adjustments that I could make the watch just slightly smaller to fit on my wrist better. As your wrist expands and contracts, sometimes the watch fits perfectly, but sometimes it's a little loose, and if I remove one of the links, then it becomes too tight. So I wish there was in between, and that's really the biggest negative I have with the watch, is the lack of micro adjustments on this clasp. So there you have it, guys. That was the review for the Omega Seamaster Professional, one of my favorite watches ever made. I could talk about this watch for hours. I could talk about how much I love the skeletonized hands in a combination with the wavy dial, how much I love the color combination, how much I love the red tip on the seconds hand, but this video would be way too long. So I appreciate you watching this video until the end. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know, what is your longest running grail watch? What is the grail watch that you wanted for the longest time? I always enjoy reading your comments. By the way, today on my wrist, I'm actually wearing another one of my favorites from the collection. This one is a simple Seamaster chronograph from 1950s. Really like this watch. It keeps good time, and it's just a beautiful watch to look at. Of course, I did a review of it on the channel. I will also link it in the description below. Also, in the description of this video, there is a secret link. Have a look if you're curious. Thanks for watching. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.